Hello and welcome back to the World Championship in Through the Ages. After the nail-biter 4-player game that we saw in the last video that I was able to win, we are now heading into the 3-player games, and when we take a look at the standings, my position after the two 4-player game wins is quite strong. I have an 8 points lead before the second placed player, so if I just get some solid results going in the 3 and 2-player games, I should have some good chances to win the group and advance to the stage 6 of the World Championship. But now, of course, I need to get those results, and if one of the opponents maybe starts to have a nice run and gets a lot of wins going, then all of a sudden things could get very close again. So, yeah, I should really make sure to get some further good results going. And the 3-player game that we are taking a look at today is actually a game against the two closest players in the standings, Malakesh and Kharny. So both of those players who maybe have the highest potential, at least when we take a look at the points, to make a comeback and maybe threaten my first place. So it would of course be great if I maybe am able to win this game and keep them further on distance. And on the other hand, for them, it's maybe a chance to really get closer to me again. And yeah, but now without further ado, we are going to take a look at the game. In this game, I'm playing in the first position, and first of all, we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we have quite some theater synergy in the game. We have all of the 3 theater leaders in age 3, Chaplin, Fleming, and Marlene Dietrich. There is the Hollywood, there's also Bach, Shakespeare in age 2, so basically only Antoni Gaudi is missing, so that certainly could be a direction to go into in this game. We also have Pierre, but no internet. We have Sid Meier, Einstein as some lab leaders, Mandela is there as well. We have the Red Cross, we have the Manhattan Project for the military, no Gandhi is in the game. We have Maria Theresa also in H2 but no ocean liner service. We have the Suez Canal but no James Cook. The railroad but no James Watt. There is Newton but no Nobel. We have 2 military action leaders with Catherine and Robespierre. 1 military action leader in H1 with Joan of Arc. Barbarossa and Genghis Khan can help with the strength. We have both Leonardo and Gutenberg, Isabella, and Barbarossa can maybe work nicely for a colonization game with the Suez Canal. And then we have also Michelangelo together with some interesting H1 wonders. We have Universitas, Himeji Castle and Great Wall. Also Forbidden City is there. I'm playing the first position. I think my pick is very clear. Hammurabi is very strong. There is potentially Sun Tzu in the road to counter him. Maybe when I end up playing against Confucius and Sun Tzu, things could get a bit awkward. But even then, I'm playing in first position. Hammurabi is just too strong and the alternatives aren't great. So, straightforward Hammurabi pick for me. Kharny will then just go for Confucius, which I guess is fine. He's a strong leader. Malakesh, interestingly, just takes the engineering genius here. I'm not sure if I agree with this. I think with him playing in last position, it would also be perfectly fine to take Ashoka and then either both frugalities or maybe frugality in hanging gardens. And I think I would definitely prefer that, but he leaves like this his leader option open and also can maybe hope to go for potentially stronger wonders, so it might very well work out for him, but I think just getting a leader on a wonder and a frugality I would prefer here. There are not a lot of wonders revealed. Actually, 3 wonders got discarded: Rome roads, pyramids, and the Colosseum. I go for Hammurabi. I build a mine, I increase my population, and then the question is, do I want to go for hanging gardens or not? And first of all, I think it is risky to skip the HA wonder here, because if the hanging gardens are discarded, then only one of my opponents will have an HA wonder, meaning the first H1 wonder and maybe also the technologies to invest into will be quite contested. And also, if you remember my Leaders and Wonders in the G video, I said that when I decide whether to go for the hanging gardens, I actually mainly look at Barbarossa now, and Barbarossa is in the game. There's potentially the Suez Canal if I go for a bit of a Barbarossa colonization style. And there's also actually Michelangelo and Darwin, both also are a bit synergistic with the hanging gardens. I think I was at the end quite fine with taking the hanging gardens here, and I also ended up taking the urban growth. With that, Sun Tzu is discarded, so I make it a bit less likely that indeed that scenario happens, that I play against Confucius and Sun Tzu. Malakesh might go for Boudica anyway, but it just removes the option from him. Kharny goes for Confucius, and he takes the only left HA wonder, the Acropolis, but he pays quite a price for it, pays 2 civil actions for it, and he delays his 3rd mine. I think even if he takes it for 2, I would have still just built a 3rd mine, despite the risk of missing out on a free religion. But I am not sure if I would have even taken the Acropolis for 2 here. Of course, it's the only HA wonder, and Malakesh is the engineering genius, but now he is the only player without an HA wonder and can just maybe hope to get an H1 wonder as a first wonder. I think that is not too bad for him, so I'm not sure if I would do the same here. Of course, the options in the first row aren't really that great, with the cultural heritage being the only pickable card. Malakesh goes for Boudica. He doesn't play against any strength leader, and then she is probably just the strongest one among those 3 leaders available for him. He then also builds the 3rd mine and increases his population. There's actually an early H1 wonder coming down the road for him, the Himeji Castle. At my turn, I build a 2nd lab with the urban growth, and then I, with Hammurabi, have still 4 civil actions left, and at the end it was relatively clear for me that I want to go for the alchemy and the engineering genius. The alchemy is just something to invest into. I can invest into it already at the next turn, get some early science income going, maybe before I finish the Hanging Gardens, because the Hanging Gardens is a wonder that is also very fine, where it's also very fine if you finish it late in H1, and then it can be nice to get some economy going before that. There's Leonardo da Vinci as a synergy, potentially Gutenberg, even though my plan is rather to just develop it already at the next turn. And the engineering genius is first of all decent to nice for myself. I can either use it in the Hanging Gardens, in which case, of course, it only gives me 2 resources, or I can maybe keep it for a potentially even stronger wonder, where I can use its full value, and I also take it away. Kharny could use it very nicely in the Acropolis, so he very likely would take it, and if not, then Malakesh maybe could get the Himeji Castle with both engineering geniuses, so I really didn't want to leave the engineering genius one available for my opponents here. I draw a card, actually another colonization card, which I was happy to see, because in case one of my opponents goes for a bit of a strength push, then I can potentially defend myself quite well. The Kharny Seeds, the development of agriculture, is revealed, and as you can see, Barbarossa is actually coming down the road, so I was interested to see whether I will be able to pick him up at my next turn. Kharny this turn continues with building the 2nd lab, takes the Swordsman for 2 and also the Bread and Circuses. There's Pierre in the game, so I think that's a reasonable pick. Malakesh seeds and opens the development of trade routes, and he builds the 2nd lab, increases his population. He could now spend 2 civil actions to take Barbarossa, but with him being the engineering genius, he rather goes for the Himeji Castle and also goes for the frugality, which I was happy to see, because that means that Barbarossa will land in the 1 civil action area for me, and I think Barbarossa is just very strong with the Hanging Gardens, and I can now keep him in hand until the point when I need some military. However, I have a bit of corruption issues, and there's even the potential idea of using Barbarossa already this turn, but I didn't really see the necessity to do this, and so instead I rather went first of all for the alchemy to get a bit of economy going. I then increased my population twice and took Barbarossa. Of course, increasing my population twice is a bit anti-synergistic with having Barbarossa, and maybe I will miss out on a Barbarossa activation like that. But on the other hand, with the Hanging Gardens, I will get more food. I might get even more food from the developments, even though trade routes and agriculture are already out now. And so I think I should still get a decent amount of activations out of Barbarossa. And so I was fine to increase my population. But before I increase my population again, then I will very likely elect Barbarossa as a new leader. It's a bit costly to take Barbarossa. I could take instead the Breakthrough, which is a strong card. Also, I miss out on the irrigation. But I think Barbarossa with the Hanging Gardens has a great potential, and so I was willing to pick him here. I draw the Reds, a nice event to have knowledge about when you are playing Barbarossa. Kharny Seeds, the development of warfare, is revealed, so it has already a bit of an advantage that I have those 3 populations lying around. Kharny can take the free warrior as well, takes the irrigation, increases his population twice, and then builds his 3rd mine. Malakesh offers an open borders agreement to Kharny. It's very understandable that he doesn't offer it to me, not only because of metagaming reasons, but also because, of course, I'm having Hammurabi and Barbarossa, who both love additional military actions. So sadly, in this situation, I miss out on this pact. Malakesh takes the free warrior, increases his population, builds the step of Himeji Castle, can finish it at the next turn with the engineering genius, and he also takes a copy of Bread and Circuses for 1 civil action. So both of my opponents are prepared now. And I can also take the free warrior first of all, and as you can see, I will start my turn by taking the masonry. And I played around a lot in this turn with some different options that I tried out. I don't think I want to take the iron here. I have a lot of other stuff to do. I think it would just be a distraction, but what basically all of my turns ended up, all of my turns I took the masonry because I can use it mage A1, I can, at least for the second alchemy upgrade, save already a resource, and that I think makes that just potentially quite strong and a nice thing to invest into now that I have a bit of additional science income going. And then it was the question, do I want to develop the masonry and build go already for an alchemy upgrade? But then I still need to get out of corruption. If I build a step of the Hanging Gardens, then I can only build one step. I could elect Barbarossa already, but it is of course the drawback of not having Hammurabi for another turn. And first I thought I want to complete the alchemy upgrade, but then I thought, well, the event deck is flipping soon, and I also was watching that Great Wall that is coming down the road, which of course works very nicely with the Masonry and very nicely with Barbarossa. So if I get Hanging Gardens, Barbarossa, and then the Great Wall, I might just be able to go for a lot of warriors, and then those warriors actually offer me quite some strength with having the Great Wall. Kharny can't take the Great Wall away. Malakesh could, but it's a bit expensive for him with already having a Mimic Castle and then that being a very expensive project. But I thought he might take it away, but I still wanted to be prepared for it. And I, with the event deck flipping soon, also then prioritized it to be able to finish the Great Wall as quickly as possible, and that basically at the end dictated my turn. So I will not go for the second alchemy upgrade this turn. Instead I take and develop the masonry. I build 2 steps of the Hanging Gardens so that I can either use the Engineering Genius to finish the Hanging Gardens and still saved a lot of civil actions in case I see that I will have enough resources, maybe thanks to some developments, to get the Great Wall going, just using the Masonry on all 4 steps, or if I realize I need the one additional resource that I can get by using the Engineering Genius on the 3rd stage here, then I can also just finish the Hanging Gardens normally and then use the Engineering Genius on the Great Wall, which of course costs me a civil action that I otherwise would have gotten with the Masonry, but with building the first 2 steps, now with the Masonry I leave myself open to save all of the civil actions possible with the Masonry if I now use the Engineering Genius on the 3rd step of the Hanging Gardens. But the one thing that I now have to do, because I could even finish the Hanging Gardens right now, but then because of the 2 food that I'm getting, I actually still would have corruption issues, and so at the end I kinda have to elect Barbarossa and use him to get out of corruption, which is not too bad, even though it maybe would have been kinda nice to keep Barbarossa even for a little bit longer, but it was at the end a price that I was willing to pay. And then with the last civil action I actually grabbed those reserves. Sadly that gives the iron for 1 civil action for Kharny, which I was not too happy to see, but I realized that those reserves could just be crucial for myself, because now I actually have, when I finish the Hanging Gardens without the Engineering Genius, I'm at 1 plus 3 at the next turn, meaning in 2 turns I have 4 resources, plus 3 is 7, plus 2 is 9, which is just enough to go for the Great Wall. So if I get the Great Wall, I have now a guaranteed line where I'm not dependent on developments to finish the Great Wall in 2 turns, which could be really relevant with the event deck flipping soon, and also with me having no tactic. If one of the players increases their strength significantly, then I could also be in danger of an aggression potentially, so I thought it might end up being very important to be able to finish the Great Wall as quickly as possible. So that was that for my turn. I keep my defense cards. Kharny seeds and opens the development of civil life, which I thought might be tricky for me to use. Kharny this turn finishes the Acropolis and then interestingly takes and develops the Theocracy at the discount, so he gets it going quite cheaply, but he is interestingly willing to just skip the iron here and rather just focuses on getting the Theocracy. Especially with having the 3rd military action already, it's I think an interesting choice, but maybe it can still give him a bit of a military advantage, or maybe he also could think about going into some colonies and can now build some military while still drawing a lot of cards. Malakesh seeds, so the event deck flips, the development of planning is revealed, and the options for the development of planning are religion, markets, and science. Malakesh finishes the Meiji Castle. He took the markets for 2 resources from the development of planning, builds an additional knight, takes the iron and the cultural heritage, but importantly for me, he doesn't take the Great Wall here, so Kharny not taking the iron maybe helped me a little bit here, maybe with the iron not being the road, maybe there could have been a chance that Malakesh actually goes for the Great Wall for himself, maybe he wouldn't even do it even in that scenario, but now I was happy to see that I indeed get the Great Wall, which I think has some great potential for me here. But I had to think about how to use those developments now, because I first will get the development of civil life and then the development of markets. And the problem is the development of civil life I mainly can use to increase my population, or I can build something. But the question is, what do I build? And if I build something, then if I still want to be able to finish the Hanging Gardens and take the Great Wall, then I would need to take the development of markets from the development of planning to still have enough resources to finish the Great Wall. At the end, it was relatively clear for me that I don't want to lose food on the development of civil life and rather just want to have it available for Barbarossa now that I can just spam a lot of warriors with the Great Wall. So I didn't want to increase the population with the development of civil life. However, I think missing out on the development of civil life is also quite some value loss. So at the end I decided to take the resources from the development of planning and actually use the development of civil life to build a third farm here for 1 resource. That will make it that I produce even more food, which at some point will hopefully allow me to go for an additional Barbarossa activation. I don't take the free religion with that line, but that's not too bad, because with getting the happy face of the Great Wall, I really don't need a happy face in the near future. And yeah, so I thought this additional farm might be quite nice. I could also go for an additional mine, but with having Barbarossa, I think the additional farm should be worth more. And thanks to the development of markets, I have of course 2 additional resources, and that allows me to not only build a farm for 1 resource with the development of civil life, but also go for another Barbarossa activation, which sadly is not enough to make it that I'm not the weakest after my turn. And I also was a bit worried that I might not get any infantry tactic, because my draws are very low in H1 because of having Hammurabi and doing those Barbarossa activations, and maybe my opponents will make it that they don't reveal a tactic for me, and then of course it's not that great to go for so many warriors with the Great Wall, but still it's I think the best what I can do here, and thanks to the development of markets I can build this farm and go for the Barbarossa activation while still being able to take the Great Wall and just having enough resources to finish it at the next turn. Finishing it takes 3 civil actions, plus I need to play the reserve, so I had to think about, do I want to take a rich land now, or maybe the cartography, but I think that would be a bit speculative. But I could take a rich land, which certainly at some point will be a helpful yellow card, and then my whole next turn would be to just finish the Great Wall. But I rather wanted to leave myself open for some other, to be able to take a card at the next turn, and with that already played the reserves for resources this turn, because there are some interesting cards coming down the row. First of all, the Swordsman could be interesting with the Great Wall to be able to upgrade those warriors, or the Monarchy to get a 3rd military action with Barbarossa, and to also be able to upgrade my civil action count could be quite strong. So I thought those cards potentially might be of more value than the rich land, and with that I already played the reserves this turn. Now I was really hoping that before my next turn there won't be any bad strength events revealed, because soon I will be able to hopefully be the strongest with the Great Wall, but for a little while I will be the weakest, and now I could get really punished. So at the moment my position is a bit fragile. So I was really hoping to see nothing bad, and I was relieved that the first event revealed is just a Confucius event, so nothing bad happens to me. Kharny takes the Code of Laws, which I think is a very important addition to his theocracy. He builds a 3rd lab, so gets some additional science income going, uses the happy face of the theocracy, builds a warrior, and, very importantly for me, reveals the legion tactic. Understandable, because it makes him the strongest, but also, of course, giving me a strong tactic. Of course, he doesn't know if maybe I have a tactic available anyway, so it's maybe fine to just reveal it, but I was very happy to see that I at some point will be able to copy that legion tactic and get quite a bit of additional strength going. Now it's Malakesh's turn, sadly he seeds as well, but again there's only a Confucius event revealed, and again I was very relieved that I didn't get punished by anything bad. Malakesh again gets additional resources out of Boudica, will interestingly make a switch to Michelangelo, but he has that copy of Iron in hand, and there are still some H1 wonders in the deck. He builds a Knight, goes for the Iron, goes for an upgrade, and is also with 8 strength the strongest, but doesn't reveal a tactic, which indicates that maybe he hasn't drawn any nice Knight's tactic. And we have seen the Phalanx as a Confucius event. Now it's my turn, I can't use my politics phase, and this turn was relatively clear for me, even though I had to think, of course, a bit about it, because as said, I cannot finish the Great Wall for 3 civil actions, and then I have 1 civil action left to do something. And I thought about if maybe it could be an idea to grab those swordsmen, but if I am stuck on 2 military actions, I think that just would not be great. And then if I have only 2 military actions, it's also really bad to upgrade to swordsman and almost get no draws going. And so I felt like the additional military action, but also the additional civil action are just extremely valuable for me. And I can, thanks to those Confucius events, even develop the monarchy already this turn. And so at the end it was quite clear for me that that is what I want to go for. And then the last military texts from H1 are discarded, but I will have more than enough strength soon with the Great Wall and even more Barbarossa activations. And then maybe at some point I can go into Rifleman directly, which also prepares me better for H3 tactics if those don't get denied. So I go for the monarchy, develop it, build the first 2 stages with the masonry, then use the engineering genius, and then finish the Great Wall, so that I'm now at 8 strength. If Kharny increases his strength during his next turn, there might still be a window where I'm actually the weakest, so I was hoping that I again don't get hit by anything bad here. It's good that I have knowledge about rats, because I can now safely save up this amount of food without having to worry about losing a lot of value if rats are revealed. Also, I draw a lot of events that I can see it. Now it's Kharny's turn, and his turn is an indicator that there is maybe still a strength event coming, because as you can see, he is not willing to push with Confucius, and he makes sure to get stronger. Now, of course, he also goes for Isabella under cartography, so it might not be a strength event. It could also be a strong colony coming, but it's certainly very interesting that Kharny was willing to skip the Confucius seed, which really indicates either a strength event or colonies. And so again, I was hoping that I don't get hit by anything bad, and I don't get hit by something. But I was still unhappy to see that I'm not part of the foray. I think that would have given me a great boost, but it's already the middle event of this event row, so I was just a little bit too slow with increasing my strength, and of course I have to expect that I might miss out on something like this if I'm so slow. And at least I didn't get hit by anything bad before, and at least it doesn't really disrupt me or anything, it just slightly boosts my opponents. Malakesh can take some additional resources. It might of course really help him now, because he can now go for 2 iron upgrades while still being able to finish the Forbidden City, making it that at the next turn, if there's an early strong H2 wonder, he can even finish the Forbidden City and immediately go for a new wonder. He reveals the Fighting Band tactic, making him stronger than me and indicating that he still hasn't drawn any Knights tactic. Now it's my turn. I don't want to push, because I'm the weakest and I will get strongest now. And so this turn I will use Barbarossa 1 time, and then copy the Legion tactic to increase my strength. I have some events already in hand, so it's fine to miss out on my draws for 1 turn at least. And I could also go for 2 Barbarossa activations immediately, but then I would be missing the resources to go for my second lab upgrade, which I now finally wanted to get going. So I do 1 Barbarossa activation, I copy the tactic, I then go for my lab upgrade, which leaves me still with 4 civil actions left, and what was clear for me is that I want to secure myself that copy of Code of Law so that I'm not stuck on 5 civil actions. I have a good amount of science income and can invest into the Code of Laws at the next turn. And then the question is, what yellow cards do I want to take? Because I think those technologies that are on the row, I don't really need to take them. I mean, maybe the warfare could be interesting, but I rather felt fine with the monarchy, and if the strategy is available, maybe I will go into the strategy. So I could either take Frugality and Patriotism, but I at the next turn want to go for 1 more Barbarossa activation to fulfill my second Legion tactic, which actually puts me at 16 strength and could even make it that I'm somewhat threatening to my opponents. So I then can't really use the frugality, and the patriotism might also not be used, so I at the end thought about rather taking breakthrough or rich land, and both are very justifiable here. Breakthrough maybe generally being the stronger card, but the rich land being more suited for my particular civilization with having good science but a bad rock income. And so I really thought about if I should take the rich land, but the thing is, if I take the rich land and then develop the Code of Laws at the next turn, then I am at 8 minus 6 is 2, 2 plus 4 is 6 science in 2 turns, meaning in 2 turns I would be missing 1 science to get into the coal. Maybe I will still take the iron or something, and so maybe it could be fine, but I felt like the science is just very useful as well, and if I at the next turn can develop the Code of Laws, and if there's just something like efficient upgrade, rich land, all reserves in hand, then I can actually go for the Code of Laws next turn while still being able to get into coal in 2 turns, and with that I ended up taking the breakthrough here. I actually keep 2 events in hand, the Knowledge of the Ancients, which with me having 2 wonders is fine. Malakesh has Michelangelo, so it's a bit dangerous, but he also skipped the HA wonder, so I was hoping that it will be a useful event. And the New Deposits is just an event that I like to keep around if possible, because at some point I might get into coal, and if I seed it then later in H2, it might have quite some potential for me. So I was willing to actually discard a defense card because I felt against the cartography and Isabella it might be difficult to compete against for colonies anyway. Kharny seeds, and another Confucius event is revealed, so now I actually could go for both Code of Laws and coal in 2 turns, so maybe I could have anticipated another Confucius event. Kharny could take this iron here, but there's a very early copy of Scientific Method, and there's also Newton in the game, so I think it's very understandable that he rather goes for that, and then he's actually willing to just skip the iron here, instead takes the rich land and the patriotism. Also he makes sure to get a bit stronger again to not be the weakest. Now it's Malakesh's turn. He reveals the medieval army tactic. Maybe he has just drawn it in his last 2 H1 draws. Otherwise, I think he would have just revealed it already earlier. And but with maybe drawing it, he has now a way to avoid being being the weakest, and goes up to 12 strength. Also, he finishes the Forbidden City this turn, which really helps him with the happy faces. And then he takes Revolutionary Idea and plays the Cultural Heritage. Now it's my turn, and finally I'm the strongest, so I was willing to push here, but the New Deposits I think are too early. I don't know when I will be able to get into coal, so I rather pushed the Knowledge of the Ancients here. And there's actually another strength event revealed. Kharny is now the weakest and will lose the population, so a bit of a setback for him. And I mean, there were 2 strength events, and for the last 2 events I was not the weakest, for the other ones I was, so I think at the end it was a good outcome for me that I missed out in the fray, but didn't get hit by the Reign of Terror, so it's also maybe the somewhat expected outcome, but also a fine outcome for me. It would have been extremely lucky if Foray and Reign of Terror would have been the last 2 events. At my turn, I want to develop the Code of Laws, going up to 6 civil actions, and I want to do another Barbarossa activation, going up to 16 strength. I'm now at 6 warriors. Then I have still 5 civil actions left. And I definitely want to take the cannons with having the Great Wall. I also want to take the selective breeding. If I get that going quickly, maybe I can go for even more Barbarossa activations. Then it was also clear for me that I want to have the efficient upgrade just to make it possible to get into coal at the next turn in case it isn't a row. So that's why this is, I think, even more important than, for example, taking the urban growth. And in this particular case, now that I have enough science to get into coal at the next turn, now I think it's better to take the efficient upgrade in the breakthrough. And then I have 1 civil action left. Now it's the decision on whether I take the iron to just still have this alternative around, or whether I fully commit into coal, and then I can take the urban growth, which at some point will provide me some value. And it's a bit risky to not take the iron, because Kharny also doesn't have the iron available, but at least I'm playing in front of him, so I might have better chances to get a first copy of coal, and there are 2 copies, and I have those New Deposits, so I really would like to get into coal, and if I don't get the coal, there are some alternatives lines that I think could still leave me in a strong position, especially going for a military push if I get riflemen and or strategy. Maybe I can be fine with being on bronze mines and just go for a lot of pressure, maybe get some aggressions. So I felt like there are some alternatives. At the next turn I can maybe start some food income, which potentially allows me to go for even more Barbarossa activations. So I felt like it's maybe fine to wait for the coal a little bit here, and I was hoping that it won't be denied by Malakesh. so I ended up taking the urban growth here. That leaves an interesting combination available for Kharny, but he has already a government form, and with the Acropolis going for Robespierre plus Republic is maybe somewhat inefficient, but could still potentially be interesting. A historic territory is revealed, interestingly. Kharny, who set himself up nicely for colonies, passing here, but he just lost his population to the Reign of Terror, and losing another population without needing the happy face could be quite bad. On the other hand, the Suez Canal is coming down the road, so it would of course also be quite strong to have this colony available for the Suez Canal, but now maybe my strength push is actually doing some work. Maybe that is one of the reasons why he is now not willing to get this colony. Sadly, I'm not the one to get it, but instead Malakesh wins it for knight. Kharny loses his third lab that he built earlier and starts some food income, interestingly, because he could have also started with the scientific method, but maybe wants to do this with the urban growth, and also with the plan of winning some colonies, maybe the food income will prove to be quite useful. Now it's Malakesh's turn. After winning the colony is now the weakest, and he won't cede with that. He takes the Kremlin. He also already went for the Kremlin in one of the 4-player games, so maybe he values that wonder relatively highly, and I do think it's a strong situation now that he got the additional happy face from the historic territory. He has an excess happy face thanks to the Forbidden City and can take it very cheaply with Michelangelo, so I think the Kremlin being quite strong for Malakesh here, and yeah, so the second Kremlin game for him already in those 3 that we have seen. He then also takes the Rifleman, an important military tech in the efficient upgrade. With the engineering genius, he's able to finish the Kremlin already at the next turn. Now it's my turn, and I am actually willing to already seed the new deposits. The arms industry was a bit uncertain to me, especially because there's only 1 copy of Rifleman left, and if I don't get it, I might just be quite bad in that event. The new deposits, of course, also risky, especially because it could really help Michelangelo. But it will take some time, and I thought about just delaying it and seeding it at a later point and maybe just skip seeding. I also can, of course, think about if a war has some potential, but I thought about if maybe a war on Kharny, who doesn't have the Magic Castle, is a possibility, but if he's willing to destroy something, he can get enough strength. So, and then there's always the threat of a promise of military protection. So at the end it was too much risk for me, and I rather wanted to push. And while I could just skip my politics phase, I will this turn go for Catherine. And with Catherine, my plan was to at the next turn very early steal a yellow token from both of my opponents, and then I would not be able to seed again, and then in 2 turns maybe I have a lot of other events drawn that I might want to seed, or maybe I am in a position where I can then maybe go for a war. So I wanted to use my politics phase, and at the end the new deposits was the best thing to use it for, and I was hoping that I will still get the coal going quickly enough for that event, so that that event will be useful for me. The rebellion is revealed. No one has any unhappy workers. I said I will go for Catherine. I will actually get some food income going. The thing is, the next population will be unhappy, so I can't that easily do a Barbarossa activation anyway, and so at the end I rather just wanted to replace him, and using Catherine early to steal a yellow token from both of my opponents is still doing some damage, provides me some benefit, and then I will just have a solid leader, and the additional military action might help me to maybe capitalize on the strength advantage that I'm having. So I take Catherine, I elect her, I need to get out of corruption. I will do this by going for an upgrade to selective breeding without the efficient upgrade, because using it would have not gotten me out of corruption. I could even go for a second upgrade. If I take the rich land, I can still get into coal at the next turn, but at the end I was fine with just going for 1 upgrade, and rather wanted to have maybe both rich land and efficient upgrade available for the coal, so that the chance is high that if I get the coal I can maybe get 2 upgrades going before the new deposits are revealed. So instead I still take the rich land, which I think is a very useful card for me here, and then I take the organized religion, as at some point I might just need a happy face solution, and while there's Pierre in the game, both of my opponents have bread and circuses, so Pierre is very highly contested anyway, and so I just used the opportunity here to grab a happy face solution for 1 civil action. I draw some cards, Popularization of Science, and 2 pacts. The Scientific Cooperation Pact, of course, can be quite interesting. Kharny this turn reveals the inhabited territory. Maybe I could have tried to make him pay a little bit more, because it's extremely likely that he is at least willing to pay 1 resource with Isabella, or just has a card. But if it backfires, I would have to pay quite a bit. So, and I felt like Kharny has a fine position, but Malakesh, with his Michelangelo stuff going on, I felt like has a better position, so I was in this situation not willing to take any risks to make Kharny pay more, even though in similar situations I really like it to bid more than I'm actually willing to send to just make it that Isabella maybe has to pay a little bit more, which I think in the right situation can be extremely important to do, and maybe I could have just done it here. I think it's unlikely that Kharny is not at least willing to bid for, but at the end I was not willing to take any risks, meaning that Kharny is actually able to win that colony very cheaply. He goes for the swordsman, plays the patriotism, increases his strength, and sadly he gets the first copy of coal, is willing to take it for 3. Maybe for him it could have also been fine to not take it, but of course that would mean first of all that I will be able to get it for certain, while now the second copy might be late. But there are only 23 cards left, so the second copy might be available for me anyway, and Kharny does not have enough science to get into coal the next turn, might go into scientific method first anyway, and maybe instead of taking coal for 3 could have also taken some yellow cards. He upgrades one last warrior to not be the weakest after his turn. Malakesh plays the revolutionary idea, will go into Republic. He then finishes the Gremlin and takes the Harvard College with Michelangelo, takes the reserves, which allows him to finish the Harvard College at the next turn. And I was really starting to be worried about Malakesh's civilization here. I think this Michelangelo game is working out very well for him so far. He has the culture lead, he has now 9 civil actions. Gets the benefits of all of those wonders, will now get the Harvard College. Maybe there's even a chance that he still gets the railroad going. And he has the Meiji Castle to defend himself, so I was quite a bit worried that he is transitioning into too strong of a position. But on the other hand, I also have still some things going with the Great Wall, and hopefully I will be able to get into coal soon. First of all, I will use Catherine, and then you can see that just barely, the coal is revealed, which I was very happy to see, because the new deposits are coming soon, and now I will be able to go for an upgrade this turn. I considered other things, like taking Rifleman, taking Strategy, but I think with the new deposits coming, the coal is just too important, especially because if I have a chance to take the Railroad at the next turn, it might be important to take it away, or even just take it for myself. With the new deposits I can maybe still finish it relatively quickly, and with the Masonry I can finish it very efficiently, and having Great Wall and a Railroad gives me quite a bit of a strength push and could maybe cause some issues for Malakesh and Kharny. So I get the coal going here. The thing is, I don't take any cards from the row here after upgrading. I will now increase my population. I don't go for another farm upgrade, which I could do with the efficient upgrade, because at the next turn I want to be able to go for another coal upgrade, so that I get even more resources out of the new deposits. And so I just increase my population with not taking any card from the row. I was hoping that I will have another chance to take the Rifleman at the next turn, because those stay on 2 civil actions for Kharny. He has some stuff to do. He might want to go for Newton, and so I think it's unlikely that he takes the Rifleman with having Swordsman. It's also unlikely that the Riflemen are discarded before my next turn, as there are maybe some other, as there's Newton to take, and I don't think he necessarily needs Opera or Team Sports. So I was hoping that I have a chance to get Rifleman for 1, because Malakesh has already taken a copy of Rifleman. If I don't get the Rifleman, it could be a bit annoying, but I think getting the coal going is just even more important here. I draw some cards, a colonization card, a national pride, and also a blunder. Kharny seeds and opens the knowledge of the ancients. Now he could actually go for coal already this turn, but with Newton he will still go for the scientific method first, goes for an upgrade, increases his population, and takes the strategy, which I was happy to see, so that Malakesh doesn't have access to it, who is on Republic. Malakesh gets an international trade agreement pact with Kharny, which I'm sadly not part of, but yeah, with having such a big lead in the standings, with only the first place mattering for the advancement, of course, yeah, it just makes sense to offer the pact to the other opponent, but it might also make sense just considering this game, of course. Malakesh gets an additional resource income, which helps him maybe even further with Michelangelo. The knowledge of the ancients allowed him to finish the Harvard College even without needing to play the reserves, and now he sadly is even able to take the railroad, which I sadly won't be able to get. I think it's an important grab for him, strong for him, and also important as a denial. And yeah, I was really worried about how strong his position is getting here. At least he doesn't have any food income yet. He has a low amount of military action, so he has some weaknesses, but I felt like his position is extremely strong here. At my turn, I seed the arms industry into the deck. I will now get the Rifleman. I will develop the Rifleman this turn. That means that I hopefully it should get some guaranteed 2 resources, and then I will also take Cavalryman and Cannons in hand. So I was hoping the arms industry should end up being nice for me. I also considered offering the Scientific Cooperation Pact. Kharny maybe can't go for a lot of technology cheaply and quickly with Newton, but at the end it just felt a bit risky offering it to Newton, and I didn't want to offer it to Malakesh, who has lots of science and lots of civil actions. So I instead rather seeded the arms industry, and the event revealed is the Raiders, so at least another strength event that my opponents get hit by. The new deposits are coming, so I upgrade 1 more coal mine, going up to 7 resource income, and then as said, I will take the Riflemen, I will develop them, I will also take the Cavalryman to have all of the military technologies that I need. Malakesh has low military action count, sadly he has the Magic Castle and the Railroad, so it won't be easy to pull off something military heavy against him, but I have this big Great Wall, and those technologies, if I get a lucky H3 tactic draw, I do think going for a big military could be a way to win this game against Malakesh's strong position, and I, thanks to Catherine, have 4 military actions, meaning I can 1 time every turn upgrade my military without missing out on any draws, and I wanted to start doing this turn with going for the Rifleman and going for 1 upgrade, going up to 18 strength and using my free military action. My first instinct was to just take the wave here now. You never know if there's a colony coming or one of my opponents gets stronger. I might be able to use it at some point, but for the moment I have a big strength lead. Of course I can take it away from my opponents, especially Kharny, who doesn't have the most resources. It might be a useful card for him, but at the end I was just too doubtful on when I will be able to use this card. And then of course the question is what to do instead. And at the end I was just fine with increasing my population and taking the journalism. For the journalisms, there's flaming in the game, the Hollywood, so if I build a journalism and at some point get movies going and Hollywood, that might also be a way to score a lot of points in H3. And just also having a way to increase my science income in addition to those 2 alchemies might be nice, so it offers me maybe another peaceful option. And then I just increased my population to be civil action and fission, but I was a bit worried that maybe there could be a rebellion coming, because I didn't have knowledge about that event, so that is a big downside about increasing my population here. I draw some cards, I get some more colonization card and a colony, so that's interesting. The H ends also, we are now in H3, Kharny seeds. No rebellion, instead a new deposits. I was happy to see that revealed before he can get into coal, and at the end it was a risk, but it worked out nicely for me. I get 7 additional resources. Malakesh, of course, as well. But yeah, I just upgraded into coal, and now those resources maybe could be especially useful for me. Kharny takes the wave of nationalism, upgrades another scientific method, upgrades a coal mine, takes the cavalryman and the journalism. Doesn't take the cannons, interestingly, could be an indicator that he has classic army or something available. Malakesh this turn finishes the railroad, making him the 2nd strongest. Interestingly, he will now just take a bunch of cards. I think those 2 yellow cards and selective breeding. And I was thinking that maybe it could be important in this turn to take a leader, especially because he could, for example, take Darwin, elect him, and then take the selective breeding for cheaper immediately, and then have just Darwin available to save even more civil actions, just having a leader available. Or he could maybe even go for Mandela, potentially. Maybe he was hoping to get Mandela at the next turn, but I certainly won't let that happen. And maybe Kharny needs Mandela, could use Mandela quite nicely as well. I think Mandela is quite a strong leader that early on, and I will now just go for him myself. But yeah, either Darwin or Mandela, or even Bach, even though it's a bit risky with not taking movies. So either Darwin or Mandela, I feel like would have been strong pickups here, and maybe worth not taking those yellow cards. Despite those yellow cards, of course, being useful, but and now Malakesh just doesn't know when he has the next opportunity to get a good leader going. Malakesh gets some draws, and we are at the beginning of H3, so let's maybe take a quick look at the overview. Culture-wise, it's relatively close, but Malakesh has a slight lead. I'm at the moment a little bit behind, but at least my production is a bit higher than Kharny's. And then I think, as said, it's looking quite strong for Malakesh. He has lots of science saved up, 9 resource income. As soon as there's an early oil, his position can explode. And he has 9 civil actions. So he has a lot of very strong stuff, but he also has some weaknesses. He has an unhappy worker, he is low in population, has delayed his food income, so he has the tech to get it going, but he will be behind that area, and being on 3 military actions also could end up being a real downside for him. And my main hope, as said, was that maybe I can, with the Great Wall and a good tactic draw, go for quite a big military push, and then with that try to win the game. Winning it peacefully might be difficult, maybe possible with a big Hollywood or something, but I was mainly hoping for war. Kharny's position, on the other hand, is fine. He has Newton with some good science income, but he doesn't have the most civil actions. Might be able to fix that soon if he goes for Conmon or something, but then he loses the happy phase. So I felt like his position is fine, but I was thinking that I would prefer my position over his. So I felt like Malakesh is the best position here, I'm the second best, and Kharny the worst, but Kharny's position is definitely not that bad that he doesn't have any chances here. He has the arenas, meaning he's prepared, and also still can upgrade some coal mines and get some fine production going. Maybe can get an early democracy or something. So I think there's certainly ways how his position also can get quite a nice boost. At my turn, I'm the strongest. I don't have the most science saved up. I didn't want to offer the scientific cooperation, and instead, with having drawn those colonization cards, I was willing to cede the wealthy territory into the deck. Ducat Harvest is revealed, which I was happy to see because it gives me 5 additional food, which I can certainly use. And then I said I will go for Mandela here. I think getting the 7th civil action is quite strong. I don't want to take the risk that Kharny doesn't take him, and that Malakesh, who now really needs a leader, has still access to him at the next turn. But I also just think for my own he is quite a strong leader here. And then before electing him, I want to make use out of Catherine's 3 military action one last time. I then elect Mandela, and then I have some civil actions left. I think the revolutionary idea is a must take. I'm low in science. If I want to go for a military push, I will need some military tax. And then I could just now end my turn normally. I could increase my population, maybe go for another coal upgrade, maybe even another farm upgrade, or maybe take reserves or something. That would be a normal continuation of my turn, getting out of corruption, doing some useful stuff. But at the end, I was willing to take the military theory for 3 here. I'm not totally sure if it is the correct move, but if I don't take it, it stays on 2 civil actions for Kharny, who might still have a lot of stuff to do. He has already the strategy in hand, he has a relatively full hand, it's not that easy for him to take the military theory, and so I felt like there is certainly a chance that he might not take it. And if Malakesh gets this military theory with the amount of science that he has, and if he at least for some more turns doesn't have to struggle with being stuck on a low military action count, then I felt like my chances for a successful military push are really not that high, and especially I might just need it for myself as well very soon if I want to go for military push. So I was willing to go for paying quite a price here to secure myself that military theory. I could increase my population and go for some upgrades here to get out of corruption, but here I think it's more important to make sure that I get 3 draws, as in order to pull off a successful military push I need both a war and a good tactic, so I can't allow myself to miss out on draws here. And instead I accepted corruption and upgraded my last mine to go up to 9 resource income. So now with taking this, I just think I do my best to keep with myself chances for the first position, and I was hoping that my position is a bit stronger than Kharny's, that I can maybe allow myself to take a slight inefficient move against him, because when I would just play against him, I would maybe just do some normal peaceful stuff. But I do now this inefficient move against him, but I was hoping that my position is strong enough so that if my military plans don't work out and I have the mechanized army tactic drawn, so at least a tactic, but not the best one for me. I think I might need modern army tactic, entrenchments, or positional army to really do something. If those plans don't work out, I was hoping that my position is still strong enough to at least finish second. Kharny develops the cavalryman with Newton, blazes the wave of nationalism, builds another arena, increases his population, builds a cavalryman, upgrades a warrior to swordsman, is now at 18 strength, and he also takes the first copy of Air Forces. Now it's Malakesh's turn. He develops the team sports, builds one with that is prepared for Pierre, and also takes the oil, and That of course is quite strong, but it's always the thing, if you have the railroad, if you have enough civil actions and science to easily get into that oil, that is just, yeah. There will be many games where you get the oil, especially in a 3-player game where there are 2 copies for 3 players, and then if you get it, you just have a big boost. And that again made it that I was not too confident that I, in a peaceful game, can finish before Malakesh. But going for that oil at least meant that he again didn't go for the selective breeding, so he has low population, and that might come to bite him if I continue a bit of a military push. This turn, I have the military theory in hand, I have cannons, cavalrymen, I have this revolutionary deer to help me to get all of those techs out, but here I was thinking it would be very helpful for me now to get the scientific cooperation pact, and Kharny has still quite a decent amount of science, has Newton, because he also sees all of the texts that I have in hand, also the organized religions, so I was worried that he might not accept, but I also sort of hoped that he might accept, and then yeah, playing the aggression doesn't give me too much benefit, so I offered a scientific cooperation here to Kharny. Didn't want to offer it to Malakesh, because I think he also can still tons of value out of it, and also he is the player that I try to overtake here. With that, the pact sadly got rejected, which makes things a bit more difficult for me. Because I need to develop the organized religion, there's still a chance that the rebellion might be in the deck, so I just want to fix it, and building that at least also gives me 1 excess happy phase, so I gain 1 culture income of the religion and another 1 from Mandela. And yeah, I could, if I would just play against Kharny, or if I just would go for a solid turn, I could now also develop the journalism, build a religion, build a journalism, increase my culture income, and also get up to 6 science income. Then I could take reserves or something, and that would be a solid turn. But against Malakesh, I just felt I need to try something with the military. And so again, I went for a bit of a costly turn, hoping that if things don't work out for me, I still have a strong enough position to finish before Kharny, and at least I will now increase my strength by a bit, and that at least will maybe also force Kharny to respond a little bit, and Malakesh hopefully as well. So even if I don't get a Warner tactic, maybe it will still have some value in it to go for the turn that I will be going for now, because I will build the organized religion with the urban growth. I will play the revolutionary deer, develop the military theory. As you can see, those things I kind of need to get going if I want to try something with the military. But I am at 1+4, I can't really get those techs out. I thought about building a 3rd lab. It could be an interesting option. But instead I will now take the next copy of Revolutionary Deer, and in order to get out of corruption I will actually upgrade as many warriors to riflemen as I can, which is a bit problematic because I have only 9 resources, but the arms industry is coming soon, and at least I have 9 resource income. And the advantage of this play is also that I go up to 31 strength, so that at least might make it that my opponents have to think about how they want to respond to that. I have some aggressions in hand, enough military actions to potentially punish them. And yeah, so I felt like this has some advantage getting all of the strength, and that's something that I wouldn't be getting if I built the additional lab. It would also mean that I have 1 more population that I don't have available for the military, so I might need to disband it at some point. It costs me a bunch of resources, so while I maybe now don't get the reserves, I yeah, just get now the science from the ref idea instead of having to put resources into this. It's again costly. I could just do a solid turn, as I said, but I was hoping that my position is still solid against Kharny, and if I get the right cards, maybe I can still build up towards a very big war, and I put some pressure on my opponents here. I skipped the space flight, but yeah, with not increasing my population, maybe the Red Cross could actually even get an option. And if you watched my Leaders in Wonder synergy video, you might remember that one of the synergies that I talked about was actually Mandela and Red Cross, and thanks to the additional civil action from Mandela, maybe the Red Cross will be it will maybe because of that be possible to complete it. I was a bit unhappy about my draw. International tourism normally often a good draw, but Malakesh will not accept it, and Kharny has only 1 wonder, so it's the question if I want to even offer it. And then just some aggressions. Maybe I will be able to play one, but I had some already, so no impacts, no wars, no tactic. So I was not too happy about what I saw from my draws so far in H3. Kharny goes for the space flight, develops the strategy, takes the urban growth, upgrades the coal mine, increases his population, and I was thinking, oh, he's playing relatively greedily here, and I was a bit annoyed that I didn't have a war available, because despite me not being able to go for tactic, maybe only even being able to go for one unit, and maybe an upgrade, I thought I might just be able to declare war against Kharny, who doesn't have enough resources to build an air force and a cavalryman or something, and doesn't even have enough science to get into air forces. So, yeah, if I would have a war, maybe I would be able to declare it against him. It could also, of course, be a hint that there is some helpful stuff coming. Sadly, there's also the arms industry coming, which might help him. But I felt like there needs to be something coming that helps him. Otherwise, I think that would just be too greedy. Of course, maybe he's just playing a bit greedily and is fine with that, as he might feel that he maybe is a little bit behind. But I was surprised to see him ending his turn with 9 resources here. Malakesh, on the other hand, will put a bit of effort into getting stronger, but also will fix his food income, goes for the mechanized agriculture, 2 upgrades, will have now a lot of food income, develops the cannons, destroys a lab, so at least he has to destroy something. Maybe my strength push is forcing him to do some awkward stuff here, also dispense a warrior, builds another cannon, reveals the fortifications tactic, with that is a 24 strength, and can defend an aggression even without any defense card if he sacrifices a knight. And plaguing aggression is also basically the only thing that I can do that I maybe could still offer the scientific operation. I mean, maybe. Maybe it could allow me to get those techs going a bit more quickly, but this turn I actually also switched my plans a little bit again. And I didn't really plan to, or I do actually develop one tech this turn, but no, I thought the scientific operation is not that much needed, and at the end I thought maybe there's a chance that Kharny, that I can hit him with an aggression. If I don't hit him, at least he has to discard some defense cards, maybe increasing my chances to win a wealthy territory or potential other colony that might be coming. And so I played a blunder against him. But he can defend, but those defense cards at least are gone. And this turn, yeah, I still haven't drawn neither a tactic or war. If I at least would have drawn one of those things, maybe I would have continued trying something with the military. But the thing is, my next turn might already be my last one to declare a war, depending on what my opponents do. Malakesh has lots of civil actions. He might be able to accelerate the game, and he is in last position. He can decide whether he ends the game or not. So I felt like getting a war going is starting to get very unlikely here. And then the thing is, what else can I do? And at least I maybe disrupted Malakesh so that he wasn't able to go for movies yet and stuff, and had to be careful. So because of that, maybe the culture score is still relatively close between us. Also, he still didn't get a leader. So not taking Darwin or Mandela at that early age 3 turn maybe is haunting him now a little bit. And one way how I thought I could maybe have a chance is to go for the red cross. And that's what I try to set myself up for now. I upgrade this farm. I will not increase my population. And then I will be at 15 food, of course. I don't have the most civil actions, at least yet, because I will also take the democracy here. But for now, I don't have the most civil actions, meaning in order to take and finish the red cross, it would need to be on the 2 civil action area, but it might be possible. And if Malakesh wants to deny it, it's maybe at least costly, or maybe he even reveals so many cards that it is revealed after his turn, and if it lands on the 3 civil action area, at least they will be able to build 4 steps, and then Kharny might be able to finish it, meaning that Malakesh might not get any steps out of it. So I thought the red cross maybe could be a way for me to still be in the game, and if the timing is right, maybe I can even go for the red cross and one of the other wonders. So upgrade this farm. I played a revolutionary idea, and I think I actually won't go for democracy, to be honest. Let's see, because I will spend the 5 resources to go for this upgrade. If I literally spend all of my resources, that allows me to not have corruption while being able to save up my food. I thought going for those computers might help me for a bunch of impacts. It just allows me to spend those 5 resources. Building this organized religion sadly costs 6. If that would have cost 5, I would have probably just built one, as that gives me some culture income with Mandela, but like this I went for the computers. And now I have 2 civil actions left. Democracy could be a useful card, but there's another copy coming, and I mixed this turn up with the next turn when I will take the democracy. But for this turn, I just went with the satellites because Impact of Progress could potentially be a very strong impact against Malakesh, who still hasn't any blue tags and not the most science available. So I just wanted to set up ways for me how I maybe can get a bit lucky and at the end finish before Malakesh. One of those ways is to set up for the red cross. The other one is now with having 2 satellites to maybe draw an Impact of Progress. And then I have 1 civil action left, and I take the Engineering Genius, which of course doesn't really synergize with my plan of maybe going for the red cross, but I don't know whether I get the red cross. If I don't get the red cross, I might still go for one of the other wonders, and it might also be needed to go for the other wonders, as Kharny is also still in the game, and I also, of course, need to have ways to still score some decent culture, at least if the big hopes are, if those won't be fulfilled. And then if the red cross is taken away, maybe I can go for the Manhattan Project. And that also synergizes with me going for computers. Also, if I go for another upgrade, I have the highest science income, at least for now, and of course depending on whether my opponents will increase their science income, which also could help for the Empire State building. So I was hoping and thinking that the turn that I go for here leaves me with some ways how I can score some points, and also some strong ways with the red cross. So that was what I was going for here. Maybe I could have also gone into this direction already the turn before, but I do think it was reasonable to try to go for a bit of a military push. But now, with again having spent all of my resources, I basically get rid of this idea. I mean, if the arms industry is revealed before my next turn, and if I draw a positional army in a war, who knows, maybe I can do something, but without that, probably a war won't happen. Unless Kharny maybe again leaves himself very, very vulnerable. I again don't draw a war, but I this time was happy about my draw because of having gone for the computers. Impact of science might be very seedable, and impact of population is actually quite nice as well. Malakesh sadly will probably improve this impact, but because of having been on low farm income or food income for quite a while, he is quite a bit worse for the moment in this impact. Kharny decides to not longer wait for Pierre, who maybe would be the strongest leader for him here, instead goes for Chaplin. Maybe also a bit of a denial from Malakesh, who has the movies in hand, which I was happy to see, because again, maybe he has to wait even longer to go for leader. He might go for Multimedia and Einstein, though. But that Multimedia is cut by Kharny. Maybe, maybe that turn, one purpose of his turn was to actually deny leader options again from Malakesh, which is starting to get a bit of an issue for him. But he also, of course, has an arena, can go for Pierre, and then even if he gets him late, it will still provide him some value. Now it's Malakesh's turn. He seeds, opens the immigration. Chaplin also helping for that. If Kharny wouldn't have had Chaplin, then I would be part of that, would get a free population. Now he denied me that free population. Malakesh plays the revolutionary idea, goes for movies, so starts increasing his culture income, has realized that my strength potential isn't really that high, takes the air forces, plays the reserves for food, increases his population, and builds another cannon. I could try another aggression against Kharny, who already discarded some defense cards, but he only needs one H3 defense card to defend, and I have some strong impacts drawn, and with that I was willing to start by seeding the impact of science, which is a bit risky. But I felt like with the multimedia being gone, there's one copy left of Computers Multimedia, but Malakesh has the movies, might want to go for Wonder, and with that I was willing to take the risk. The freedom of movement is revealed. That was seeded by Kharny, and maybe that was also the reason why he's willing to play it a bit greedily early on. And as you can see, I start my turn by taking the democracy, which I think is an important puzzle piece here. Because again, I was thinking, how can I still finish before Malakesh? And again, I was thinking about the red cross, but as I said at the turn before, with my current 7 civil actions, I can only take and finish the red cross when it is available in the 2 civil action area. If I have the democracy in hand and enough science to develop it at the next turn, then despite needing to spend one civil action to develop it, I will have 8 civil actions left afterwards, meaning even if the red cross is in the 3 civil action area, I might be able to take and finish it, and that makes it more likely that I will be able to do that, because I felt like Malakesh has also a lot of food. He sees that I'm perfectly prepared for the red cross. If it isn't a row on his turn, he will deny it. And then it's of course very likely that if it is revealed during my turn, it's in the 3 civil action area, so I think that the democracy being very important here, not only of course because of the culture income, but also to make a red cross turn possible. And again, Mandela's civil action of course also playing a huge part, so a big synergy. It and yeah, so I would have just enough science to go into democracy at the next turn. The thing is, if I don't increase my science income here, and of course I had to think about how do I use the freedom of movement. And as you can see, I used it to put an agriculture into organized religion. And I thought about turns when I maybe I thought about turns where I keep this farm and upgrade it to selective breeding and then try to spend my resources differently. And that actually would allow me, I think, to increase my population once while still having enough food for the Red Cross for the next turn. But those turns didn't really work out that well, and I would have some issues or I would not have enough resources, I think, to go for this upgrade and a computer upgrade. And the problem with not going for a computer upgrade is that while I can still develop the democracy the next turn, in 2 turns, if there will even be 2 turns, it's also a chance that the age just ends, but there's also a chance that the game continues. And if the game continues, then if I develop the democracy at the next turn, I'm at 0 plus 7 if I don't go for the computer upgrade, and if I indeed just take and finish the red cross, there will be no time to go for another upgrade. And then in 2 turns I would have only 7 science available. I will take those rockets in hand this turn. And then out of the sudden maybe things could get dangerous for me, because I will get a loose cannons and cavalryman and I won't have enough science to go for any military tech, and maybe just going for some more riflemen could be enough, but if one of my opponents starts building up a bit of strength, things could get dangerous, and I wanted to be able to threaten to get into rockets, and with that upgrading the farm didn't really work that well, and instead I put it into the organized religion, which immediately increases my culture income, and then again, if I spend all of my resources, again, I can be out of corruption without having to increase my population. And then with the last 3 civil actions, I will take the rockets in hand. And that's it. Because my hand is full, sadly, and I can't develop any of those techs because that would remove the ability to go for the democracy. And I can't use the engineering genius. Of course, you could argue maybe you just don't take the rockets, maybe you take the reserves, maybe you take the endowment. But yeah, it's the last copy of rockets, and I felt like I could potentially get punished for it if I don't have those. And then of course it feels very bad to just float 2 civil actions, but the rest of the cards that are available for 1 or 2 civil actions are not the most important ones anyway, or the most strong ones. And so at the end I was fine with just going for this turn, even though it cost me 2 civil actions. But at least I'm nicely prepared for the red cross, and if I don't get a red cross, then maybe I can still hope to get a Manhattan project, as that card cannot be taken away. Kharny and Malakesh would be expensive for him to take, and he doesn't have a lot of science income. I keep a bunch of cards. Sadly no more impacts, but 2 wars. Those might be too late though. Kharny Seeds, my arms industry is revealed now. Each player gains 2 resources. Kharny uses the freedom of movement to put a swordsman into cavalryman, interestingly. He builds the first 2 stages of the space flight, maybe just to spend some civil actions, reveals the classic army tactic, takes the military build-up, and with that is nicely able to increase his strength with going for an air force. Malakesh Seeds, the wealthy territory is revealed. I'm able to win it. I think I was willing to send a rifleman in all of my cards. Now I win it for a bit cheaper, and I had to decide whether I want to send a warrior on all of my cards or a rifleman and keep my H3 card in hand, but I felt like it's unlikely that I will still be in danger of an aggression, and there's only 1 H2 event left, so I at the end just sent a warrior. And if you take a look at the card draw, the red cross has appeared. maybe a bit too early, but I was now very interested to see whether Malakesh will deny it, but I was fearing that he might deny it. I win this colony, at least those additional resources maybe might help me to do some stuff. And Malakesh will indeed go for the Red Cross. It almost costs him all of his civil actions. He also takes the tanks, so it's costly for him, but still it will score him some points, and he denies it from me. So sadly the timing of the Red Cross wasn't perfect, but I also would have needed a bit of luck in order for the timing to be perfect. But I mean, if it would not be in a row now, maybe Malakesh would just take a bunch of cards, and then, yeah, there was a chance that maybe I could get the Red Cross. Now Malakesh gets it, but at least it was costly, and maybe I can still go for the Manhattan Project now. And I got now the wealthy territory, and maybe I will be able to do something with all of those resources now. My turn, I see the impact of population. It should still... now that Malakesh gets the Red Cross, not I thought the impact of population is now definitely be worthwhile for me again, so I pushed it into the deck. The developed territory is revealed. For that one I was not willing to bid, as I don't really need the benefits, even though it would give me a bit of additional culture for Mandela. And Kharny is able to win it, has 2 colonization cards. The start of this turn is relatively clear for me. I first of all will develop the democracy. I build a step of Malakesh's Red Cross. I take the Manhattan Project. I take both reserves and endowment. And then there were 2 variations that I thought about. Because the idea is to make it that the Manhattan Project actually scores me a decent amount of points. And one thing that I could do would be to build another computer this turn and already build the first 2 stages of the Manhattan Project with the masonry, which gets me out of corruption, without having to increase my population, which is now not necessary any longer because of the Red Cross, but it still gives me 1 additional culture when I don't do it. So I could either build a computer in 2 steps of the Manhattan Project. And then at the next turn I would have enough resources to build a 4th computer, which is possible thanks to the democracy, and also another religion, meaning I could finish the Manhattan Project for 20 points, and I would have a lot of income with the computers. What I can do alternatively is to take this multimedia with my last 2 civil actions, accepting corruption, and then at the next turn, instead of building a computer this turn and 1 at the next turn, I would have enough resources and civil actions to build 2 multimedias and finish the Manhattan Project, scoring 4 points less from the Manhattan Project, but getting 6 additional culture from the multimedias. Now if I go for this line, then because of having corruption this turn and also because of spending 2 actions on it, I don't have enough resources and actions to also build a religion, so basically that only gives me plus 5 additional culture, so it gives me 5 more culture production, but I score 4 less points for the Manhattan Project, but it's still plus 1 points if I go for the multimedia. But of course it's also important to think about impacts. And the thing is, if I build an additional computer now, I immediately get more science, which allows me to develop not only 1 but 2 technologies at the next turn, and one of those technologies could then be the satellites. And if I take the multimedia now, I can only develop the multimedia the next turn. And the satellites, as said, the impact of progress could be really big against Malakesh, and maybe could be one of my outs, how I can still win against him. But, yeah, in the worst case scenario, if I take the multimedia and then draw the impact of progress, there is still the option of just building still 2 computers at the next turn and developing the satellites instead of the multimedia, so that's still a possibility at least. And with not committing to the satellites, and if I then don't draw the impact of progress, I also thought that if that impact is a bit weaker for me, maybe the chances at least increase that Kharny seeds it. If he has it in hand and maybe takes the engineering now and sees that I don't develop the satellites, then out of the sudden he might be willing to seed it, and the chances that it is in the deck are increased. While yeah, if I plan to go for the satellites, then I might only get it if I draw it now. And also, of course, while I want to think about how I might be able to win this game, I also still need to finish before Kharny and have to do solid enough moves to not threaten to lose this game, or to not be in danger of losing this game. And one bad impact for me could be the impact of culture. Malakesh soon might build up a lot of culture income, and if I just build computers and 1 more religion, I very likely would have a very bad impact of culture, and if I go for those multimedias, the impact of culture is quite a bit better. And with that, I at the end went for the multimedia, as that just gives me one more save point. Impact of tech and progress are a bit weaker, but I don't have those drawn. And at least my impact of culture isn't that bad. Maybe if I wanted to maximize my chances to win, I should go for the computers, hope that I draw impact of progress now, and then... But as I said, if I draw the impact of progress, I can still go for 2 computers, but then I don't get the religion, so I miss out on a little bit of value. Yeah, but at the end, I was willing to take the multimedia here, and at the next turn, I will have exactly enough civil actions to do all of the stuff that I want to do. Of course, I was interested to see, do I get a good impact? I do get impacts, sadly not the best ones. Colonies might be seedable, would at least give me 3 points against Malakesh. Impact of industry is quite bad against him, so yeah, sadly none of the very good impacts for me, but at least I have now 2 good or decent impacts in the deck. I mean, impact of science might end up being quite good against Malakesh, actually. Kharny seeds, the impact of agriculture is revealed, which is sadly a strong one for Malakesh, but to be fair, he also has just a bunch of strong impacts. Kharny builds the step of the Red Cross, takes the engineering, which gave me some hope that maybe he might see the impact of progress into the deck. He plays the military build-up, builds an air force and a swordsman. Has corruption at the end of his turn. I'm not sure if building a cavalryman would have fixed it. Maybe it's one of those weird coal situations where spending 2 more resources don't really help you to get out of corruption, because if it would help, then it might just make sense to fix corruption, of course, by building a cavalryman, but probably would have seen it, so I guess it was one of those coal situations. Him increasing his strength let me fear that maybe there's an impact of strength coming, which would be bad for me. Or maybe if I finish the Manhattan Project, Malakesh doesn't get stronger, it could also be good for me. Sadly, there's also a peace treaty accepted. Malakesh gets 2 culture out of it, Kharny only 1. Wasn't too happy to see it, but maybe I can understand when Kharny mainly sees chances to finish before me, because Malakesh will now get Pierre, the Olympic Games, the Red Cross, so he will just have quite a strong position. And sadly, he also takes the military theory here, so even if there's an impact of progress, it won't be the biggest one against Malakesh. And then it is my turn. I push the impact of colonies. I still had some hopes that I might be able to finish before Malakesh if I get the right combination of impacts. And so I was willing to risk potentially hitting a bad impact that or an impact that I might improve during my turn. But one of the impacts I actually have knowledge about, the impact of science. So I now was willing to push here for 3 points against Malakesh, and I don't get punished. The impact of science is revealed, which gives me plus 14 points against Malakesh, and it's one of the reasons why I still had some hope. I can now play the endowment for 3 points, develop the multimedia, build one, build another one, finish the Manhattan Project for 16 points, and then I have just 1 civil action left to increase my population, which doesn't cost me Mandela culture, but gives me 2 points for the impact of population. So that turn was now quite straightforward, now that I have not drawn the impact of progress. Kharny goes for the engineering, but doesn't push. Finishes the space flight for 23 points, takes reserves and patriotism, so now will actually move a swordsman into the cavalryman. And now it's Malakesh's turn, and when we take a look at the culture, I have actually a bit of a lead. But Malakesh will get 1 culture income and the Olympic Games, but the gap won't be that big that there can't be some hope. Malakesh seeds, declares the Olympic Games. There is another good impact for me. Impact of happiness gives me plus 16. That was probably seeded by Kharny. Malakesh only gets plus 10 out of it, so my lead increases. Malakesh develops the military theory, builds a team sports, destroys a mine, builds a cannon, is now the strongest. I was really worried that that might mean that he has pushed impact of strength into the deck, but I was kinda hoping that he maybe has seen Kharny putting some effort into getting stronger, and maybe he thinks that he could have seeded it and is just playing around it, but at the end Kharny actually doesn't have pushed it. That was what I was hoping for, because if the impact of strength is in the deck, then my chances for first position are definitely vanished. He also really increases his culture income by building all of those movies and team sports. And before the final impacts, he has a 13 points lead before me. So, yeah, I didn't have the most hopes to finish first, but I had some hopes. And I was hoping that my 16 points lead before Kharny will be big enough to, so that I will at least finish at the second place in case my small hopes of getting first aren't fulfilled. First impact is my impact of population, giving me +4 against Malakesh and +2 against Kharny. Then there's the impact of government, that at least gives me the same amount as Malakesh. So far no bad impact. I'm only 9 points behind Malakesh. But then there's the impact that I feared might be in there, the impact of strength. Malakesh gains +13 points against me. Now the difference might just be too big. And now I might even be more afraid that Kharny might be able to overtake me. There's the impact of colonies, which gives him some points against me. But now the differences are relatively big, so if there's no very swingy impact, then the standings might just stay like that. There's the impact of harmony, actually giving me another +4 against Malakesh. Kharny has also +20, and with that, at the end, Malakesh is able to win this game. I finish second, and Kharny is finishing third. Yeah, so that was an interesting game. Interesting H3. I think Malakesh had a strong Michelangelo game. I was, the longer H2 went, I was really thinking, oh, it will be challenging to make it to the first position because Malakesh's position is just looking so strong with all of those strong economical wonders. Then Malakesh didn't go for a leader at the beginning of H3, and it could have, of course, gotten it could have gone quite differently, and maybe he could have gotten a leader relatively early, but I think he maybe should have taken one at this turn. And he basically played the whole of H3 without a leader. Maybe one of the reasons why it actually was relatively close still at the end, despite me not getting a war and not being able to go for the red cross, or not getting the two big outs that I saw for myself to still win this game. Nonetheless, it was close, and one of the reasons I said, I think, was that Malakesh just didn't go and have any leader available in H3, which is of course a huge value loss. And so I first tried it with going for a lot of military. This Great Wall, I think, provided me a lot of value this game. But I didn't get the right cards early enough, so then I switched my strategy and was hoping that I might be able to go for a red cross. But I needed to be lucky with the timing, and I at the end didn't have that luck. And Malakesh denied it, which at least was costly for him, and then I at least still had ways to score a bunch of points, so that it was still somewhat close, and so that I also was able to keep my second position before Kharny. But yeah, it was an interesting H3. I'm interested to hear whether you maybe would have at some point done something differently to maybe have a good shot at winning this game. But yeah, I think I tried to play towards my outs. But of course I had to be careful to still finish second. Alright, so congratulations to Malakesh for being able to win this game, and now we can also take a quick look at the standings. And I just saw that only 5 hours ago there actually finished another one of the 3-player games where I wasn't involved, and as you can see, Malakesh, actually funnily with the exactly same final culture score, was able to win another 3-player game against Bright Future in Kharny, and in the 3-player section he is doing his best so far to stay in contention for the first position. And that when we take a look at the standings now, he actually has the same amount of points as I do, so he, it looks like, will be the big contender now. For the first position, winning the first 2 3-player games. So my next 2 3-player games, and especially maybe the game against him, and also the 2-player game against him, might end up being very important games. And hopefully I will be able to also get some wins now in the 3-player games to remain with a good position, because another loss and soon things could get quite close again. So Malakesh really putting some pressure on me and making it exciting again, which at least is maybe nice for you, the viewers, so that there's some excitement. Alright. With that, we are at the end of the video. The other games are still ongoing. And we'll probably have time for the next video at the beginning of next week. And yeah, then I say thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.